All right, so I'm making another humidor, and it's gonna be made out of sepele and mahogany ply, and of course Spanish cedar on the inside. And here I'm just cutting down some sepele, which is going to be the rails and stiles on the outside of the carcass. And I cut them down into 2-inch pieces, and since this was 8/4, I'm now cutting them in half down to about 1 inch, and then of course I'll run them through the planer and the joiner to get them down to about a little over 3/4 of an inch. And now I'm running those rails and stiles through the router, putting a rabbet on the outside of it, and this is the ply that I'm going to use. And this is only a 1/4 inch ply, but of course I'm gonna have another 3/16 veneered Spanish cedar going on the inside, so that's gonna make that what is that, 1/2 inch almost thick. And now I'm gluing that 1/4 inch ply into the rails and the stiles. Clamping it up. And here I'm using these cawls here to make sure I'm getting good pressure all the way across those rabbet joints. Since I don't have a vacuum bag, this is what I have to do. One day I might actually get one. It would definitely make gluing up the veneer, Spanish cedar veneer on there, make it a lot easier. And won't have to worry about if I'm getting even clamping pressure all the way across. Once again, I'm applying the cawl across there for the even clamping pressure. And here I'm using some ash that's repurposed from another table that was given to me. And this is going to be the top, the back, and the bottom of the carcass. And this is those panels I made. And here I'm just using the dado stack to put a rabbet around the edges. And this will be the type of joinery I'll be using on the carcass. And now I'm cutting some Spanish cedar down to smaller pieces to make the veneers for the inside of the humidor. And now I'm getting the bandsaw ready to resaw that Spanish cedar. Use some little blocks to get my bandsaw set up at about 3/16 of an inch. And each time I cut down the piece of the veneer off, I got to move the featherboard over to make sure I'm getting pressure up against the fence. Now I'm beginning to glue that Spanish cedar on. This is what will be the back of the carcass. Once again, using cawls to apply even pressure. And this would be a perfect example of where that vacuum bag would come in handy and I wouldn't be having to do all this. And I'm also using the clamps here to line up the edges. Or actually, that was the only reason I was using those clamps, was that line up the edges. Once again, using the clamps to do the same thing. And now I'm going to start gluing up the carcass. As you can see, the joinery there is those rabbets, top and bottom. This will be one of the sides of those panels I made. Clamping everything up, getting it nice and even. All right, and what I was doing right there is cutting some sepele down to make the frame on the Carcass. Once again, clamping it down. And the door on this will be inset rather than have an overlay. And I need to run these small boards through the planer to take off a few 3/16, I believe. And since they were so short, I need to put them on that piece of plywood so I didn't risk them getting all wonky inside the planer. Now I'm gluing up the door. And this is my first time ever doing cove cuts on the table saw. I was really intimidated about this or ever trying it. And I have to admit, this was a cakewalk. It was extremely easy, and definitely will be using that technique in the future. And what I was doing right there was putting the 45-degree angles on the top and bottom, gluing it up, putting them on the top of the humidor. But if anybody who's been hesitant to do cove cutting on a table saw, just go ahead and give it a try. It's, you want to just make sure though that you don't have that blade up very high, just taking off very small amounts off each pass. I would say less than a 16th just to play it safe. Right here I'm gluing up some backer board for the crown molding that I just made on the table saw. And here I'm getting some 8/4 sepele and getting it nice and square. Once again, I'm using my setup blocks to equal 13/16. Gonna resaw the sepele. And this is gonna be the top of the humidor. So I'm gonna glue these together to make a panel. And once I ran those through the planer and joiner, got it down to just a little under 3/4 of an inch. Applying some clamps there at the joint to make sure it stays flush. For the bottom, I'm doing a bevel cut on there. And then for the top, I'm just gonna do like a little small 1/8 of an inch round over. Kind of give the illusion that the top is a little bit not as thick as it actually is. And here I'm actually gluing up some pieces of sepele because I'm going to make the feet for the humidor. And once again, trying to get even pressure using my cawls. And taking a measurement here, I believe it was like around 2.5, 3 inches is what I wanted the feet to be. And I'm using a pattern from when I did some Queen Anne legs before, just using the top of the pattern and using my bandsaw to cut that out. And once you cut these pieces off, what you do is you go back, tape them back together and turn the piece on its side, and this is what you end up with. Made some half round molding to go along the top, or excuse me, I think that might be the bottom actually. And I'm using dowels to join the feet to the bottom. And then I'm going to join the top by using a Forstner bit and the drill bit. And I'm going to screw these into those back pieces, little small backer boards I put on there earlier. And I did elongate the holes so any wood movement would be okay. And now I'm going to create the inside down at the bottom where the drawer is going to go. I'm going to take some more Spanish cedar, and this plywood was just regular plywood from big box store. And I originally had left that rabbit up there at the top because I was going to use it as a guide for the drawer, but the drawer fits so tight inside there and almost perfect that I just ended up not doing it. Those pieces that have that in the back right there, that was how I used to apply side pressure to make sure that I got good pressure to glue it to the sides. And there I was just using the router table to make the vent hose on the top piece. And now I'm making the little drawer that's going to go down the bottom. And this is where the humidifier will go. And now I'm making the cigar baskets. And once again, using the dado to make a little small dado so I can join these pieces together. And then I skipped ahead, and this is where I'm making the drawer face. Had to make a panel out of it, and I did a round over on the drawer. Got it lined up, threw some pin nails in there, and now I'm screwing it to the inside. I mean, from the inside to secure the drawer front. And as you can see, nice little fit. Now getting back to the cigar baskets, putting the little slats on the bottom, and I'm using a 1/2 inch spacer to make sure everything's all even. And this is where I decided to put instead of putting a handle for the drawer, I decided to use my cove bit and create a little finger space, as you can see. And now I'm using a spacer that I've got cut at an angle. So these cigar baskets will be at a slight angle. I want to say it was like 5, 7, maybe 8-degree angle. And as you can see, that's all done. And then since you're going to have this is a larger humidor, you're going to have a humidifier down in that drawer. You have a place to plug it in. So I was drilling a hole for a little desktop plug. Get them on Amazon. And I'm now applying Rubio monocoat to the drawer, the door, and the entire humidor itself. However, of course, you don't put any type of finish on the inside on the Spanish cedar. And this is how it looks after I put the Rubio on there. I think I use a walnut shade. And here's the little light that goes in there. Took the door down to the glass company, let them put the glass inside, and this is how it looks all finished. Appreciate y'all watching.